there I'm back. I figured out where I want these drawers, and this is how I came up with it. Now, you know, for your application, you know, your faces might not be as thick, you know, but the basics are the same. So in my case, the drawer faces, I want 3/4 of an inch above and 3/4 of an inch below. And then when those drawers are closed, I want 1/4 of an inch gap between those drawer faces. Sometimes you can put a board in there like this, and then your drawer faces shut on that. But in my case, I'm gonna just leave a gap. And that gap, if you do 1/4 of an inch gap, you know, because of the shadows and the dark inside there, it's gonna look just fine. You don't have to do this and have those faces close on that. If you want to, that's fine. That's just fine. Now bringing this in a little closer, see, this is what I did on the other one. And you want to start from the top down. So here's my blocks. And if they don't want to stand straight up, put a little tack in there. All right. Because you can pull that out later. Now, the drawer slide, pull your drawer slides apart. You got this little deal right here. You just push that over. This slides out. Now this is going to set up on there. That is going to, I can't see with these safety glasses on. I need to put my regular glasses on for close-up. So remember this 1/8 inch right here. I've already marked it. And I'm going to bring this slide out right to that 1/8 inch mark. And then what I like to do is just put a little hole in here where that first screw is going to go. And like I always do, I always put a headlamp on when I'm working in here. See, look at the difference. See how dark that is? You put that light on it. That way I can be sure and see my holes. So let's get this first one in there. You want to be tight down on here. You don't want this drawer slide like that. You want it setting flush on your supports. So I'm going to go right down here and put a hole in that one. All right. Now if you think you're going to have to adjust your slide in and out, I don't think I'm going to have to. You would go into this slotted one here. Now I cut these blocks for that narrower box I did, and remember, everything's the same height, same depth, so I'm just reusing those. So now I'll just get get a slide, pull that off right there, and this is going to set right there, and it's going to come right out here to that red 1/8 inch mark I have marked right there. So I'm going to get the first screw in here. So that screws in there. You want to make sure you're down tight. So you don't want it, like this. You want to make sure you're down tight. I'm going to go back here and put a pilot hole in this one. And then put that screw in. So now you just pop those out. I'll need those on the other side over here. And then put this slide back in here. And we've got an 1/8 inch, 1/8 inch, 1/8 inch. Down here on the bottom. Down here on the bottom, same thing. Gonna pop this out. And it will go right up to that 1/8 inch mark I've made with that red line. And I'll get that first screw in. We're getting close to cutting some drawers. So now it's time to figure out what size these drawers should be. Now this one is going to be 4.5, this one's going to be 7, and that one's going to be 7. Well, let me put it this way. This is 7.5, 7.5, 4.5, and then when you take off a 1/2 inch for the depth of the wood, you're looking at a 7 inch depth, 7 inch depth, 4 inch depth. If I go inside to inside, those are 26.25. All the way down. Because remember, when you make your box, you can make that box absolutely perfectly square. And then everything will be the same. Whereas if you're using pre-existing cabinet, you're tearing out the old drawers, you have a hollow space there, it may or it may not be exactly square. If it is, good for you. If it's not, using this method, losing a little bit of width can really save a headache. So let's take a look at this. The end pieces are where the screws are. One of them's in the back. If this was the front, it'll be covered by the face, so the screws will be covered up. So the floor of the drawer is set inside the 4 walls. The 2 end pieces are set, the 2 end pieces are set inside the 2 side walls. That puts your screws in the right places. So now it's just a matter of putting the screws in. And go slow, and you can kind of hold it with your hand a little bit just to make sure nothing moves. Now, using this technique, of clamping it to hold it will only work if you are square. If you're out of square any on your cuts, it's going to foul up this method. So now make sure you're real tight with your clamps, and you should be able to turn it over and this floor should stay in place. All right, so there's the drawer that is 7 inches. It's 7.5 inches overall, 7 inches inside depth. So now let's put it in the cabinet. I want the bottom of this slide to be even with the bottom of the drawer. But look, keep in mind that this slide, this is what's going to screw to the drawer, and it's 3/8 of an inch above the bottom. So when I put this on the drawer, I've got to measure up 3/8 of an inch. So it doesn't matter which end is the front. This is the one I'm choosing to be the front. And so rather than measure it and stand a chance of being off, if you've watched my videos, I keep all my scrap. This piece of scrap happens to be 3/8 of an inch. So there it is. There's my line. I don't have to use a tape measure. All right. Now, the first one, let's do this. The slide has to be even with the front. And this is when I use one of the slotted holes in case I have to adjust it. It's always a good idea to kind of put a little hole in there just to make sure your screw goes in where you want it. Do the same thing on the other side. All right, let's see if it fits. Look at that. Miracles do happen. So the same technique I used here, I'll do here. Exactly the same. I'm not going to show that, just repetitive. But these screw holes will be covered by the face that's going to go on the drawers. The screw holes in the back, of course, you're not going to see those. The screws on the bottom, you're not going to see those. So this is the first board. I've marked out on those drawer fronts what sizes I need for the faces. So those two narrow drawers on top, I need those faces 5 3/8 by 28. So I can get them both out of this board. Here, I'll show you. This is just rough cut, dirty barn siding. And so what I'm going to do is turn that into beautiful, beautiful wood, finished wood. So what I'm looking at is, see these cracks? Those cracks could pose a problem for what I'm doing. Now the option would be not to worry about that crack and then put glue in it, squeeze it together, let it dry, because you don't want to waste this wood. And if a crack like that's the difference between losing a sheet of this valuable wood and being able to use it, I'll glue it and clamp it. But in this case, I can get 5 3/8 out of this bottom edge right here. And so first thing I'm gonna do is put this on the table saw, run this through, and rip this down to 5 3/8 and start working with it. So that is what I'm going to do next. So that'll be the two top narrower drawers. You can see where the back side's rough. I'll run them through the planer. The front side's really rough, but we'll clean that up. It'll look beautiful. So one's for and then this is 28 inches for the wider cabinet. And then this piece I keep those pieces. You never know when you're going to need a piece to fill in somewhere. You never know. So I keep them. So I ripped that first piece. Here's an example of what you're going to run into with this barnwood. This remaining piece is split all the way through. Well, that's a good piece of wood. So I glued that edge, clamped it, wiped off all the excess glue, and that won't matter because when you finish this wood the way I finish it, this will all go away. So anyway, don't throw away wood just because it has a crack. I know this next barn that I'm going to take down, looking at that barn siding, there's a lot of barn siding that's split. So I'll probably, as I take it off, I'll probably glue it and clamp it right out there on the job site. So anyway, don't throw it away. I'm going to plane those down, and then I'll run those through the router, and those will be for the stiles and rails. Now my stiles and rails are all the same cut. Some of them are 2 inches, some of them are 1.5 inches. So this wood right here that's 4 inches. So what I'll do is I'll run both sides through the router, and then that'll give me the option of cutting 2 1.5 or a 2 inch and 1.5 inches. So I'm not going to split these into 1.5 or 2 inch. I'm going to leave them whole, and then that'll give me the option later on what thickness I want. And so I'm just going to hit the high spots. It exposes that wood, and then when I put the polyurethane on it, it'll just jump. It'll look like $1 million wood. So, and also it makes it smoother, makes it easier to go through that planer. So that's what I'm going to do next. All right, can you tell? See the grooves in that? See, this is all rough. This is how I want it. This is just how I want it. So when I put that, see when you sand it, see what it does? See, you have the natural gray, and then here is raw wood exposed. Same way here. And when I put that polyurethane on there, it will jump. I want to show you why I use these two finishes. The polyurethane water base, crystal clear semi-gloss, and the polyurethane oil base semi-gloss. You'll get two different looks with your wood. Here's an example. So this wood is planed off wood. This end is the water base, this end is the oil base, and then up through the middle, that's the raw wood. See the difference? See how the oil base just makes that wood grain pop right out of there? Now, on the other hand, look at this. This is rough wood. This isn't planed off, this is rough wood. So this end, here's your water base, here's your oil base. Now look at the, and then of course here in the middle is the raw wood. So look at the difference. This water base takes this rough wood and just makes the colors pop. You know, there's not much color on this, but some of the wood has reds and stuff in it, and it'll just make it jump. The oil base on this rough wood, I think, makes it way too dark. There's just no contrast in the wood with it. So to use them, so here would be here side by side. Here is, over here on this end is the water base polyurethane crystal clear semi-gloss. On this end over here is the polyurethane oil base semi-gloss. See the difference? And that's why I use these two finishes depending on what kind of wood I'm on. Now it's time to take these 1.5" stiles and rails for the faces on those drawers. I'm going to cut them to length and then go from there. So I'll do that on everything. I'm even going to do it on the doors, the double doors on the front. Even though they're not the right size, they're oversized. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the stiles and rails, and then when I decide what the size will be, I'll just trim them down. So that's what I'm going to do now. Alright, so here we are back. It's time to put together the faces for those drawers. You know, it's all routed off, and I have gone on ahead and put oil-based polyurethane on here, the water base on the front, and now it's time to get stuff kind of put together here. get it nailed on. I'm shooting 1.25" nails. And let's see how these corners are going to fit. Holy cow, perfect. So I need to get it a little bit higher in the air so that these will go under there. So I'm just going to build it up a little bit. That way I can put these clamps on. So fits nice. You just want to make sure that all of your cuts are perfect. I don't know how to stress that enough. If you think, well, that's close enough, well, that close enough is going to come back to haunt you. But the beauty of Barnwood is it's so, like a friend of mine said, that imperfections are the perfections. So if something doesn't jive quite right, or something that would really show up on new slick clean wood, it may not show up with Barnwood because it's so uneven and, you know, rough anyway. So anyway, this went together pretty good. I'm going to shoot these stiles and rails on, and then we'll go from there. It doesn't take a whole lot. I'm going to make sure I'm not shooting through. And that's about right. So, and then out here in the middle, I'm going to shoot one just to keep everybody honest. And that's that. Now, on the back side, the only thing it's going to show is about 1/2 or 3/4 of an inch of this all the way around. So that's all I had to finish. On these edges, I'll now go ahead, once I get these made, I'll go ahead and I'll polyurethane this edge all the way around. And that'll work. That'll work. Okay. As a matter of fact, well, I've got it on here. I may just go ahead and do it, and then I can set it out there to dry. So now all of the rest of the faces are going to be like this. I'm just going to get them to fit. I may have to trim an end a little bit on the saw. Get everything to fit good, nail it down. I'll just continue on. It's the same repetitive thing throughout, so I'm not going to record all of that. and then we'll come back. The time has come now to put the faces on these drawers. The first thing that I have to do is put the handles in these drawers. Well, let's put it this way. I'm not going to put the handles in, but I'm going to drill the holes for the handles. And then we'll mount them and put the handles on last. So let's go over here to the table and I'll show you how to measure out for those handles. So that hole right there, you're going to look through that hole and see that nice bright shiny wood behind there, so I don't want that to happen. So the first thing I'm going to do is cover that hole. If it was a great big hole, I'd use probably tar paper, but a little hole like that, I'm just going to put on black electrical tape, but you want flat black, you don't want glossy. See, now you can't see through it at all. So the center, that's 5.5. Two and 3/4. Double check. All right. This is when, if your handle is crooked, it's going to show up. Now, I know that the centers are 3 inches on the holes for these handles. So I'm just going to take this paper and I'm going to mark out 3 inches right there, right there, and then right there. There's the center. All right, now now I'm going to find the center of this. So now that I've done that, I'm going to find the center of this. And that is 9 3/8. So 4.5 be. I'm going to get the 9, and then I'm going to find the center of that. Now you take your paper and there's the center, and there's the center. That's where my holes are going to go for these handles. I put a hole in there. If you do that, then your bit won't try to walk on you. This is how I'm going to do all of the faces for these drawers. So I'll just go on and continue on doing that. Next, so I got the holes drilled for the handles in the faces. So now let's install them on these drawers, and hopefully I've measured right. Alright, so what I need to do is I need to get this face centered up on that drawer. And there's going to be 3/8 above. So what I'm going to do is this piece of scrap, I keep all my scrap, that's 3/8 of an inch. So I am going to shoot that on there with little 1-inchers, which I didn't need one, that's as small as I've got. And now look. Now you can work with it. So that is now centered in here. It's 3/8 inches up. So what I did was I pre-marked to put a couple screws in here, and I just measured half of this distance and then 1 inch in. So I'm going to put these screws in, and I'm using the same screws that I used on the pocket holes. They really work good, they go in easy, and you just want to make sure you don't use one that's too long. Because you sure don't want it to come through. Alright, so that's on. Now I'm going to move up here and I'm going to put this one on and just keep climbing up, and I should end up with about 1/4 of an inch gap in between there. So I'm going to pop this off. I went over here on the table saw and I ripped a piece of scrap down to 3/16. I think I like that gap a little better. Yeah, I do like that gap better. So you just want to make sure your edges are even. And then I'm going to go ahead and drill those holes right there for the handle. I'm gonna go ahead and drill these holes for the handle. As long as you have everything square, then you can measure off of this one all the way up. Alright, so now I've got to figure out what length of screw do I need. Let me see. So now I'm just going to put the screws in, and depending on what your thickness is here, you know, you're going to use various lengths of screws. So now it's just a matter of getting your handle lined up. There it is. And I've got a 3/16 inch gap in there. Alright, we're done. Everything works. Everything soft closes. And this is the easiest way if you are, you know, doing what I'm doing, with this bathroom vanity, or you're tearing out the drawers out of your existing kitchen cabinets. If you do this, then everything will be straight and square. You can build them out in the shop, slide them into place. You'll lose an inch, because this is 1/2 inch plywood. So you'll lose an inch over what you would have had, but it may be worth it to save you a big headache. So my gap is even everywhere. And now it's time to go in the house and slide these in. I can't wait. Now, if all of your drawers are exactly the same, mark them. Put a piece of tape somewhere and mark them. 1, 2, 3. Because you want them to go right back in where you took them out, because everything fit. So if that's the case, then make sure you do that, because I'm going to have to take these drawers out to put this in place, and then I will screw it in place. I'm not going to show that. There's no big deal to that. I'll take these drawers out, put this in place, screw it into place. I'll probably, in fact I know, I will use those pocket hole screws because they drill so good into wood. And then I'll put these drawers back in. So that's what I'm going to do.